talk hurt the freedom fighter, or should President Trump be afraid of a potential libertarian presidential run? Let's go to tonight's panel and meet them and hear their thoughts. We've got attorney and America Rising PAC senior strategist Alexander Wilkes is here, along with Reason Magazine editor-at-large and host of the award-winning Fifth Column podcast. There's an award somewhere. It's Matt Welch. No one's going to look it up. Don't worry. And Foreign Strategies president and National Taxpayers Union senior fellow Mattie Duppler is here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to talk to the person who knows Justin Amash best. Is this a good move for him?
I think so, because he's doing his job. I mean, that's the thing that the libertarians of all stripes, but particularly his little cohort of Rand Paul. When Rand Paul ran for president, he kept showing up for votes too. They take their work on some basic level seriously. And even if you disagree with this conclusion, he's right in saying that, look, no one's read this thing and everyone's acting. They're completely 180 degrees flipped from whatever they were with Bill Clinton on this. And it's embarrassing, and you should read it and take it seriously and take the legislative branch's, power struggle with the executive branch seriously. So in all of that, that's all perfectly a good move. It's interesting that Democrats right now are freaking out. They don't really know how to deal with the fact that it's a Republican who's making the best case for impeachment. And I would just do a little narrow shave of what he said. He's not ready to draft articles of impeachment. What he said tonight to reporters is that it's a process. And if at the end of the process you discover there's a reason to draft those articles, then do that. But our job should be doing that process. Well,
and I think the job should be to read the Mueller report as though what is being assigned to the president in Part 2, if that were applied to a statist, super leftist, progressive Democrat, would you have the same feelings? Would you have the same feelings and come away going, no obstruction, no collusion? Or is this solely partisan based?
Well, so I think it's important.
And I'm talking about people's reactions to the report.
I mean, impeachment is a political punishment that's meted out by our representatives. It's not some kind of criminal, judgment that's made by a neutral arbiter. It's made by our politicians. So Justin Amash, as one of these elected representatives, is making this judgment. And his judgment is one where I'm on the opposite side of it when it comes to obstruction. But within the legal community, there are a lot of people on the different sides. There are people who believe that a sitting president can or can't be indicted. There are people on...
That is certainly true, and I almost wish that Robert Mueller had pressed that issue and charged him with something just so we could have that figured out for the future in the long run. So that wouldn't be a lingering question.
Sure, I mean, but there is a legal, within the legal community itself, there are divisions on this particular issue. And so I think that this was a lot of flash, but I'm not sure how much is there, particularly as Matt said, because there are no articles of impeachment that are being drafted right now, and I don't think the political will is there for that.
Can we get back to what Matt just said, though, about how the bar for members of Congress doing their job is literally just showing up to vote? I mean, the bar is that low, and I would say that the bar is...
But a lot of them don't even do that.
That is fair, Kennedy, but I would also say that, listen, when it comes to having a Twitter screed, that is not the same thing as making policy. If there are not articles of impeachment drafted...
Are you talking about the president, or...
I'm talking about anyone who has a republic responsibility to do something when they're in a position of power, Amash and the president. So if Amash has this opinion, he should do something about it. He had a Democrat tweeting at him, well, come on over and sign my articles of impeachment or my bill to get this process started. He should do something if he believes that this is actually where he stands and what the fight that he wants to pick.
One of the things that he has done, as you well know and have covered on this show, is that on various things having to do with the authorization of use of military force or the power that the Congress should have over things like tariffs and trade and immigration and other things, he has always said, he has drafted those bits of legislation and said, we need to do something right now about executive power and on surveillance and Fourth Amendment and all this other stuff. Congress has been, the real constitutional crisis in the country is not whatever Bill Barr is saying or whatever, like subpoenas trying to be quashed or like ignored by the president. It is the slow-moving lack of the executive or the legislative branch doing its job and instead punting it to the president because it's politically easier to do that.
Or punting it to courts.
Or punting it to courts,
and suing in terms of executive orders instead of doing their job.
That's exactly right.
And I think the best illustration of that right now is immigration. But, to have someone also who explains every single vote, and when it is a no vote, oftentimes it's because of something subtle within the text that is problematic, which also goes to show when you have bills that are, 200 and 300 pages long, a lot of times people don't read them. And he does read them, and he does take issue with certain things, and that can make him unpopular to leadership. But he's is well thought of in his district. We'll see if he runs again or if this primary challenger is successful. Now, let's talk about another 2020 contender, Democratic contender, Kamala Harris, taking aim at the gender pay gap by promising to punish companies that don't try to even things out. Last night, she explained why.
In America today, women for the same work, for the equal work, on average make 80 cents on the dollar.
Harris wants to require companies to get an equal pay certification from the government. According to her plan, companies, quote, must demonstrate they have eliminated pay disparities between women and men who are doing work of equal value. If companies do not comply, they would be fined 1% of profits for every 1% difference in pay. Is this the right way to take on the issue, Mattie?
Oh my gosh. So there are enough challenges for women in the workforce without executing arbitrary standards that make sense only to politicians. And, you know, I would say that as someone who works in a space where there's a lot of men, I work in public policy in Washington, D.C., this is absolutely lunacy to me, because what you're doing is you're looking at a situation that is going to be rectified over time. And yes, companies have a responsibility to provide mentorship opportunities and to right these wrongs. But right now we're living really at a change in the composition of the workforce. Women for decades and decades have made different decisions about their work lives and about their education. That's beginning to change. Women have higher rates of education, higher rates of higher ed degrees. They're coming back into the workforce rather than staying at home and raising their children. But that doesn't mean that jettisons them to the executive suite right away. We need to do more to create those funnels and those pathways so that women are in a position where they can take on positions of leadership and not have government saying that 1% of pay is equal to whatever value you provide to the company.
I don't even think she's done a cost-benefit analysis and really looked at these numbers and the impact they could have, say, on Hillary Clinton's corporation, where when she was a senator, women made 76 cents on the dollar to men.
I mean, it's complete hypocrisy from the liberals. And I think that, you know, what infuriates me the most as a female is the way that the liberals' policies, and particularly in this respect, they infantilize women. They say that we're not strong enough to be able to fight for our own pay parity, that we need government to come in and do this for us. And I want to say, who is paying for the enforcement, the massive enforcement costs that you would need to intrude into the business of corporations out there that are trying to get, you know, in our current economy, that are creating jobs, that are growing wages? Who's going to enforce this from the federal government and lend a hand where it's not needed? As Mattie said, the market is correcting some of these wrongs from the past, and I think we should continue to let that do its job. It's already illegal to discriminate on the basis or to pay people unequally under the law.
This top-down oppressive policy could have some unintended consequences, and also oftentimes it's a case-by-case basis.
Right. It is, and I mean, she has stated tonight, I saw her on a rival cable network, saying that it's not even up for discussion. It's a basic fact that women get 80 cents to the dollar for men for the exact same work. That in itself is wrong.
Exactly.
It's not even close to being right. I mean, the National Bureau for Economic Research is not like some left-wing or right-wing, a ragbag kind of a organization. It's actually the best repository of econometrics, and they put the number closer around 96 and 97 cents based on workplace choices.
When you factor in all the other issues.
So the people who want to craft these policies are slinging BS about them, and that should be a first warning sign.
I'll be the first to duck. All right, I want to thank you all so much. Mattie, and Alex. All right, it's almost a triple Mattie night. We'll call it. All right, we've got a news right now. President Trump just landing at Joint Base